Hi, everybody. Welcome to StreamHorseTV. This is Tokyo Takeaways, where we are joined by the lovely Catie Staszak, CEO of Catie Staszak Media, an international FEI show jumping commentator. This is Catie's specialty. We've just come out of individual show jumping final jump off. We have medals, but not without a little bit of interesting, twisty, I wouldn't call it drama, but we have a sumo wrestler who really heavily affected what's going on. So we have our gold medalist, Ben Mayer on Explosion writes, and that was not a surprise?
No, not at all. Heading into these games, Ben and Explosion were heavy favorites. Of course, there were some other really top combinations, and you would say that their top competition would have been Martin Fuchs from Switzerland and the great Clooney, who they faced off with previously in the European Championships for individual medals. We didn't quite get that matchup as Martin had a pair of rails in this individual final, but Ben and Explosion delivered. It was an exciting jump off. I would say today was not as surprising as what we saw in qualifying, but it was, they lived up to their expectations, and it's yet another notch in the belt for this pair. There's not much they haven't won, so they were impressive. They were a bit expected to have this kind of result, but it still takes a ton of effort. There were a lot of really top pairs giving them a stiff challenge. And a huge congratulations to them, very well earned.
Sweden got all three of their competitors into the jump off, which was quite impressive.
Amazing. Yes.
Yes, and you had a very strong Japanese competitor, a hometown hero, who unfortunately had to go first, which is kind of a disadvantage, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when you have those pairs coming after you. Your job is to go in there and jump clear and to kind of put the pressure on as much as you can for the rest of the group. But when you know that you have those combinations following you, there's only so much you can do. The first rider went in, jumped clear, and then the next rider came in and shaved about 3 seconds off that time. And the next rider came in and shaved almost 2 seconds off that time. And it just kept, the margins were getting smaller, but each time they just kind of outdid one another, of course, until you got to Ben and Explosion. And then Peter Fredriksson did a tremendous job, almost caught him. And, he then just kind of outdid him as he just followed Peter by, a little over a second. So they were brilliant. I also thought the final two riders gave great chase. Mikhail van der Vleuten was so thrilled with his individual bronze, and that was very well deserved. It was a very good jump off. Everybody really delivered in that phase.
And what, for those of us who, Explosion obviously looked, just as his name would suggest, just so wonderful. What sets him apart from the rest?
This horse has every piece. He just kind of checks all the boxes. You'll notice immediately his scope. I mean, he is just brilliant. He clears the fences by a mile. He's got a tremendous stride. He doesn't just get the height of his scope. He gets the width. He gets across the oxers. A lot of times when horses jump that high, they have a hard time getting across. This horse, it's absolutely no problem. And to go with it, he's quick. He has the foot speed. He's very agile. And he just has every piece, the brain, the bravery, the rideability, everything you could possibly want, this horse has. And he is without doubt the best horse on this planet, of course, at least in this sport.
Yes, and if there was any question, he just won the gold medal. And I'm glad you mentioned bravery, Catie, as I've seen all the rumblings. I didn't see any actual incidents, but let me take us to the sumo wrestler jump and tell us what kind of impact this had. I mean, it's in the headlines So
yeah, so dressage had rave horse, show jumping got a sumo wrestler. This fence really proved a bit of a stiff challenge in qualifying. Not so much today in the final, especially after all the horses had already seen it, though it did appear again. There's so much that you could talk about with this fence. And I would love to chat with the course designer about it, because every little piece has meaning and has a purpose. You can see it a bit more clearly in the last picture, but there is what we call the jump filler. And that was that small circular piece in the middle there. Normally when you have jump filler, you'll see 2 or 3 of them that line up, you know, at the bottom of the fence. This was just one, so a very odd fitting piece, not to mention you could see completely through it. So that draws the horse's eyes down immediately. Then of course, your horse is going to bounce off of that person that is really making up your right standard. I mean, it was so realistic that you think that there's someone really standing right there. And, you know, certainly coming off a bit of a sharper turn, you could get caught a little bit off guard. I think the biggest piece of this are actually the rails. The rails, the way they're painted, they almost blend right into the backdrop. The horses can't judge the height as well. And not to mention, it was set at, I believe, 1.63 m. The course spec was up to 1.65 m. And I believe that was set up to 1.63 m on qualifying day. So it was a massive, very careful vertical with a lot of pieces. It did come down a lot. A lot of horses did look at it. We did have one that said no at the last minute. And it was very unique. The course designer was very creative. All the jumps kind of fit or represented different motifs or cultural traditions in Tokyo and in Japan. And boy, I mean, it was a very visually appealing course. There was a lot to look at.
It was definitely visually stimulating. Do you think it was a bit much, just in terms of, you know, our brave jumping horses are supposed to really be able to take on all the challenges, and that's part of the ask of the horses, is that they jump everything bravely and boldly. But was this, but then also the optimum goal of a course designer is not to necessarily scare them, right?
No, absolutely not. You know, the mark of a good course designer, they want to set something that's fair and safe for all, but has the technical challenges that make it not easy. You know, and this course had that. These horses are the very best in the sport. They have seen so many crazy things throughout their travels across the world. The majority did jump this fence well. But when they see something new for the first time and something that drastically different, and of all the courses that I've seen, I have never seen anything like that. So it would take me and catch me off guard a little bit. And I do know a few riders that, you know, in their training, they had a training day before individual qualifying that made a point to walk up to that fence to make sure their horse saw it before they were galloping toward it in qualifying for, you know, Olympic medals. So it definitely was one that is a standout. You know, it was just very different, but certainly fair, not against the rules. These horses have seen a lot, and the majority jumped it without issue. But you won't forget it.
No, and I'd say, I'd just throw in there, I'm an amateur and I don't see as many courses as you lay your eyes on, but I don't see human statues with little loincloths generally. So I don't know, it's a little bit much. Did it really screw anyone up in qualifying who you noticed who maybe would have done better? I mean, it caused a few problems, right?
Yeah, it certainly came down, but it was 1.63 m. It was a very careful vertical. I think the rails had a lot to do that, and not just the Sumo Wrestler. First off, my hat is off to the artist who made that. There was another fence today that I believe was said to have taken a month to paint by hand. So just incredible. artisanal work there in designing and constructing these jumps. So that was very, very impressive. I think I saw one horse really run out at it, a couple others kind of maybe backed off, but there are so many things that you could attribute that to, not just this sumo wrestler, but it's what you notice most, that's for sure.
And let's just briefly talk about our Americans. They did not do as well as we hoped. And tell us what happened with them. I don't know if it was the sumo wrestler.
It was not. They actually, two of them had the same exact fence, but it was not the sumo wrestler vertical. It was vertical coming into the double about 3 fences from home. It was minor mistakes, but this qualifier was so intense that you could only advance if you jumped a clear round. A couple got through with time faults, but if you had a rail of any kind, you were out, which was really shocking. And our American riders, Jessica Springsteen and Kent Farrington, they each had a rail, while Laura Kraut had 2 rails, a little bit disappointing there. So it was really shocking not to see a single American in the individual final. Of course, we'll see them again in team qualifying on Friday. But for sure, it's a very, very different format and different structure for show jumping. We've talked about the new formats in the other disciplines. I think it's most drastic in this sport. Previously, it was 6 rounds of jumping determined the individual champion at the last Olympic Games. This year, it was 2. And just 1 round determined who got into the final versus 3 at the last Olympics. So it makes a big difference. It was a very new format that's going to take adjusting, and we'll see how that kind of holds through. But it certainly, showed right away without a single American in the individual final. Not to mention, Steve Gerdat did not advance to the individual final. So that was pretty momentous. Of course, the horse that was expected to win, he won. So he met all the tests, and it certainly made for some thrills and a little drama. So we'll see what unfolds in team competition.
We hope we see USA make it through qualifying for the team competition, and we hope we see more of our sumo wrestler friend and see how things go. I don't think he is either, and I wonder what's going to happen to him afterward. We'll have to find out. I would like to announce our very special guests now. We have the team behind Rave Horse with us, aka Steffen Peters and Suppenkasper, better known or otherwise known as Mopsies, dance beat dressage ride. So I will bring on Marie and Taylor. Welcome.
Hey.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
We are so happy to have y'all. This is such a special treat. We know that over the last few days, it's been a little bit wild. Suppenkasper and Steffen's dressage routine has gone pretty seriously viral. Someone was watching it who I don't think they seemed like they were even an equestrian, but they just picked up on it, named it Rave Horse. It's now been viewed by tens of millions of people. And we have Taylor and Marie who are behind putting the mix and the track together. I want to play a little clip so y'all can get some background, and then we will discuss.
Alex, come look at this Rave Horse.
Now, I'm probably the only electronic music producer that made a piece for the Olympic Dressage this year, but I'm going to show you guys how I made it. All right, here's the project for Steffen Peters, the rider. It's quite large. And below it, I have this video of one of his previous routines so I can sync the music as it plays along. Now, the TikTok video started on Calabria, which is in the middle of the piece, so we'll start it there. Shout out Steffen and Mopsy, you guys crushed at the Olympics.
It's so good. Everybody loves it. You really can't stop watching it. It doesn't get old. Dressage is historically known as being boring or stuffy in general. Even my father used to say he's sitting out the horse dancing or the horse ballet. He would skip it when I was doing horse trials and eventing. He definitely didn't want to be a part of it and was always very vocal about that the horse dancing was boring. So that's my personal memory of it. But this is really hopefully taking dressage into a new uber modern, uber forward, really fun place, right?
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about how y'all got together on this project with Steffen.
Oh gosh, I definitely, I've been a rider and a professional dressage rider and trainer for some years and played piano competitively as a kid, and it just sort of took off. I ended up doing a piece for Killa Priest, who's a part of Wu-Tang, and and from there, actually, Gunther Seidel, who's also an Olympic dressage rider, very well known. He originally had me do a piano piece for his horse, Zero Gravity, or the Mashburn's horse, Zero Gravity, and all of a sudden, I had a business, a freestyle business, and it's been a dream of mine for many years that just freestyles in general should be better edited. The music choices that go together, you know, it's so easy to make a mash of songs, but you spend your whole life, 20 years trying to get into the freestyle, or you work so hard trying to make a freestyle, and then you have this terrible music. Anyways, so Steffen and knew that I had worked on some music and knew all about the intricacies of making sure that every footfall fits the beat, and he said, hey, I want to do this dance music. He was a DJ and he came with these amazing song choices. And I said, God, I don't really have any experience with this whatsoever. I'm a classical pianist. I have this dream to make freestyles awesome. And I happened to meet Taylor through my boyfriend, actually, Josh Powell, who's a farrier. Anyways, and Taylor, instantly, he got it. He has the skill to, take a song, and the edits that he can do to put two songs together and make it sound good is amazing. He's so talented. And I definitely knew that Steffen's personality and his personality would get along really great. And I said, hey, can you help me with this? And, there's so many more freestyle clients that need someone like you with this more modern music. And he was able and willing and took it to the next level for Steffen and I and the whole dressage world.
And Taylor, tell us how the tracks were selected and what Steffen's vision was and how you settled all of that with him.
Yeah, so when Marie called me, she's like, hey, we should just sit down to talk about this. So she came up to my studio space, actually just like my living room, where I had a studio space set up. And she brought the song list that he had, and some of it was, like kind of modern electronic music. The one thing that he was really strong about was starting with the Robin Schulz song featuring James Blunt, Okay, which is his song that's really important to him. It's like a tribute to his wife. And he starts in the Olympic piece. If you watch the beginning, that's the first song that you hear. And so going off the theme of that, he had some other songs that were kind of electronic, but he still needed a little help finding some music that would fit. He had like the general idea. And so I have a massive library of music. My background is DJing and producing. I've been doing it for like 10 or 12 years. And so I have like thousands and thousands of songs that could fit potentially. And I ran through probably like a couple hundred of them, trying to find stuff that would fit properly. And, it goes through tons of versions before the final songs are decided. But I think at one point, Steffen kind of came up with the idea of the Calabria, which is kind of a classic, like dancey song from back in, the 2000s. It's been remixed a bunch of times because that melody is so strong, which is the melody that you hear come in at the beginning of that TikTok video. And I was like, wait a minute, there are some remixes of this song that would, I think, be really crazy to put in here. And Marie's like, oh my God, I love it. Let's run it by Steffen. And that's like when you hear that really big drop happen, because she was like, we need it to be basically like the biggest moment of the whole piece. And I was like, should we just go for it? And we sent it to Steffen and he loved it. And so we kind of based that second bit of the piece based around that song, which is the part that went viral on the TikTok, obviously.
And Steffen wanted it to be like a party, right? You said?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's like, you know, his choice in music is like really fun. He loves fun, upbeat music. And I think he even said in the Yahoo interview that he wanted his music to feel like it's the same music he would play if he was having a house party later on in the night, you know? So I think we really vibed well as a team because of that, because of my background and just his vision.
And you said you even tried to get him to maybe go more uber modern, but maybe we'll see that in the next routine.
Yeah. Marie and I were pushing boundaries for sure. What do you think, Marie? What do you think?
I definitely think it took a lot of we got a lot of pushback, not from Steffen. He thought it was awesome, but honestly, even from me, I was like, "Oh my God, can we do this? Like, I'm a professional in this world too. I'm gonna have to walk around with a bag over my head." But it's so cool. I mean, Taylor, the fact that people love that, and Steffen obviously deserves like so much credit. He had this vision, he picked those songs, and I think that Taylor's talent with picking songs that people will love, and just the fact that this is proof that people love it and it transformed dressage. Taylor has an infinite amount of more songs and more ideas that we really had to hold back from doing, just obviously for the classicalness of the Olympics itself. And I just want to say too that a very long-standing music or freestyle producer, Terry Gallo, definitely had to help with the process too in the end of making sure that it was appropriate for the Olympics, that we got all of the licensing for all of the songs done correctly, because she's been in the business for a long time and had been to the Olympics with her music and her clients many times. So
excellent. Yes, we definitely want to credit her for being part of the collaboration that put this together. And Catie's been covering the Olympics in all of the equestrian phases. And Catie, you said you were just entirely entertained by the dressage this year.
I mean, I watched the freestyle live, and even still, I couldn't stop watching the TikTok video. I had to keep replaying it. And, Marie, you talked about how you really try to have every beat match the footfall. And
yes,
it just looked like that song was written for them. It was just magnificent. And he got such tremendous scores for musicality. I mean, it was just absolutely brilliant. I think it is the best possible thing for the sport of dressage. I think throughout the entire competition, you saw more riders actually use some more modern, recognizable music outside of, Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. It was just, which is brilliant and really great, but it was just made it more relatable and brings in a new audience. And I just found it was one of the most exciting, entertaining, dressage events that I have ever had the pleasure of watching. It was just such a treat. And the entire time, I really just thought about the two of you. I didn't know the two of you and who exactly was behind this, but I thought, wow, whoever wrote this is a genius. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And can you please do this for everyone?
I mean, I think it really takes the watching it to the next level when it's really accurately placed with the freestyle and making it. I mean, this happened with Gunter's too. When I made his, you start the piece, and by the end of the season, the horse has gotten stronger and better in certain things. So the pirouettes get smaller, and and therefore, they take up less time. And you
Sure.
have to fine tune or fine
Yeah, wow.
this thing. We had probably, I want to say 10 or 12 different versions by the time it gets to the point
Wow.
where it all is working really consistently, because the horses change. And once the pattern is set, like I said, they get stronger, they get better, they go across the extended lines faster, or in Steffen's case, actually the passage got more expressive, so then it takes more time. It actually slows it down, so we had to add some music in certain places. And I know in the very final steps too that Terry made a couple last minute changes to that too, because she was already working on it and in there too. So but you have to really, obviously the music choice is huge. And whether it has to be like a full-on rave, maybe not, but I do think that just more popular music brings a huge attraction to the sport. And then the accuracy and putting time into the freestyle. I mean, you take so long to put a dressage horse together. People need to spend more time really making the music fit the horse and the pattern fit the music,
Well, as Catie said, this didn't turn off the judges. The scores were excellent, and the reaction is clearly positive. We're dealing with, one of the world's greatest in history, Steffen Peters, so he can execute for sure. But what this does for the sport, I think it's unanimous that people want more of this. People like this stuff, and to call it horse dancing and it be boring and walk away from it, or to call it horse dancing, this is the horse at the club. It's very, very small play on semantics, but very different, outcome. And I think that we should mention also in Rio, we had Lorenzo, who was ridden by a Spanish rider to Smooth by Carlos Santana. Is it Smooth? Am I getting that wrong? Smooth. Think
Taylor.
So. Anyway, Taylor, top 40, number one.
I don't know that one.
It was Billboard's number one of, I think, the year 2000, probably something like that. Don't quote me. But everybody was just all about it. It was on late night television here, but it really brought, a sport that's kind of not that accessible to a greater audience, and how much fun. And I mean, Catie was up at all hours watching this and said she was just so entertained, which is not usually the case for dressage.
I think it's really important to say too that I think the sport needed somebody like Steffen to carry this burden is the wrong word, but to carry the torch.
The torch.
People would not just, oh my God, it's like so different, and be too scared of it. I mean, what better, there's no better person than Steffen, who's a beautiful rider with this magnificent horse Mopsy, to push the envelope and make it respectable and awesome. I mean,
yes. And Catie, you talked before about Steffen. If you want to talk more about him, Catie, just the way that he works with horses and the way that he speaks with them. He has the horse whisperer gift for sure. And Catie was talking about it in the prior episode.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure Marie would know about this more than I, working with him so closely. But just from interviews and watching him, he's a tremendous rider, tremendous horseman. He's always talked about being very visual. He visualizes every aspect of a championship to prepare himself for it. He's just very intuitive. And it just translates to the horses. He is a joy to watch, a joy to interview and chat with. You just want to keep talking because he's, just so enlightening and has such great perspective. So he is so great for the sport of dressage, and hats off to him. You kind of look at Steffen and you wouldn't picture him to be that type that would come up with that sort of playlist. He's so quiet and soft spoken. But boy, is he creative, and props to him for being so modern and being up with that, because I couldn't have thought of that or picked up those music choices. So amazing for him.
Most people would be too scared to do that, but now the ice is broken. And I do think too, just the way that he dances, you know, I mean, it's like watching an amazing dancer. They can just transcend all of it, and he carried the music perfectly because it's a big piece of music. It's maybe harsh isn't the right word, but in comparison to dressage, it's harsh in a sense, you know, and it's like a party, but you're really partying, and he just put the perfect amount of elegance in that. It's just like a great hip-hop dancer too. They just make it amazing.
But so much art goes into dressage, and every single move that they make is art, is so artful, and takes such precision and so many hours of training. So why shouldn't it be a very, you know, celebration style of music? And I do want to ask Taylor before we go, did you ever think that as an EDM specialist and music producer that you'd be working with equestrians?
Yeah, definitely never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that. Or like, you know, I've been working behind the scenes with like a bunch of the world's, I've been really lucky over the past, you know, number of years until my personal artist project was sort of like ready for the world. I've been working behind the scenes doing mix work and stuff for a bunch of the world's biggest DJs. And for this to now be right as I'm launching my artist project, and now like I'm more well known almost in the horse world than I am in the electronic music world is pretty funny. But I couldn't be happier. And also I just had a lot of fun doing this because like it was a really weird thing where my skill set just happened to be perfect for making freestyles for dressage. And so now Marie and I, you know, we're going to keep making more of them. We had a lot of inquiries and we're going to start, you know, we started a whole separate page on Instagram, Rave Horse Productions. And we're going to try and help move, kick the door down and move the industry forward and make it really more accessible for the general audience.
I think one more thing, not to like talk too much, but Taylor, as Steffen, is an incredible rider, right? And just gives it that last little bit. Obviously, Taylor's some generations younger, but mark my words, he has that edge to, I mean, we go back and forth and I'll be like, is this song? And he's like, hold on a second. And you wait about 1 minute and then he plays what he's made. And I'm like, oh my God, that's it. Like he just has that edge. He gets all of it, even if it's not like totally Calabria. He somehow, like he just said, his skill set just fits perfectly to make it a little bit more modern, super creative, and then make like really hard transitions from like canter pirouette to the piaffe. He makes it work like perfectly with the music editing.
Well, we can't wait to see you two elevate the entertainment value of the dressage competitions. Absolutely, just so much fun. And to make it that much fun is a big task, but I think y'all are well on your way to doing it. So we can't wait to see and hear more. We hope you'll let us know when you have another client that you're working with, or when Steffen's about to do another routine, and let us know how it goes. And again, your new venture is called Rave Horse Productions, right?
Yes, you'll have to check
We're
out.
As of right now, yeah.
Okay. Buffini is doing BTS pretty soon. So you'll have to check that out.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank y'all so much. Thank you again, Catie, for all of your insight. We are looking forward to the final equestrian element of the Tokyo Olympic Games, which will be the team show jumping. We hope USA can bounce back in there, and we will look for a lot of great jumping this weekend. I'd like to remind everyone of our social media campaign. Be a torchbearer, make your own fantasy Olympic team. And if you follow us on Instagram and participate, you will be eligible to win a $300 prize package from Ride Bedford. So we hope everyone will follow us on Instagram as well as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And we thank y'all again. It's been such a pleasure, so much fun. Catie, see you on the next one.
Sounds great. Thank you, everyone.
Nice to meet you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.